The courtroom felt heavy and still, like the air already knew a poor girl's fate was about to be decided without mercy. A young woman in an orange prison uniform stood alone in cuffs, her tired eyes carrying nights of fear and silent tears. People behind her whispered softly, judging her story fast, never knowing the pain and sacrifice that led her here. The rich judge leaned back in his chair, gold watch shining bright, power and pride clear in every slow movement. He looked at her like she was nothing important, just another poor file placed on his desk on another boring day. Her clothes were old and simple, but her back stayed straight, protecting the last pieces of her broken dignity. No family came to stand behind her today, no lawyer near her side, only silence and the sound of shaking breaths. The judge flipped through papers carelessly, like her whole life story was just cheap ink printed on thin sheets. Then he began speaking in a foreign language, fast and sharp, making a few people in the courtroom smile in mockery. Some believed she would not understand his words, thinking shame would force her head down in quiet defeat. Her fingers tightened, not from fear of prison walls, but from the insult that cut deeper than any legal sentence. She slowly raised her eyes toward the judge, and something changed. Not fear this time, but strength born from pain. The judge kept speaking that foreign language smoothly, each word shaped to remind her she stood small before his power. A few people traded looks across the room, some confused, others smiling faintly at a moment that felt deeply wrong. He believed language itself was control, sure she would stay silent, ashamed, unable to answer his polished attack. But the young woman did not lower her eyes, did not shake, did not bend the way he confidently expected. Her chest rose with one slow breath, like someone pulling years of buried courage into a single steady moment. Memories rushed through her mind, her tired mother working nights, her little brother waiting hungry at home. She was not standing there only for herself, but for a family surviving because she chose strength over fear. The judge finished speaking and paused, glancing around proudly, convinced he had already won without effort. Silence spread across the courtroom, thick and tense, waiting for tears, shame, or quiet surrender from her. Instead, she raised her head fully and met his eyes, her voice calm, steady, and stronger than he imagined. She replied in the same foreign language, clear and fluent, each word striking like truth in open air. The smile slowly disappeared from the judge's face as everyone realized the girl he mocked understood everything. The courtroom shifted in energy at once, like power itself had quietly moved from the high seat to where she stood. Her voice did not tremble at all, each word measured, respectful, yet strong enough to shake pride in that room. She spoke not with anger or insult, but with education, clarity, and a calm dignity he did not expect to see. Every sentence she answered carried meaning, proving she understood every word he had used to shame her before. The quiet laughter in the back slowly died, replaced by silence thick with surprise and rising discomfort. The judge adjusted in his chair, fingers tightening slightly, the first crack showing in his wall of confidence. He cleared his throat and looked down at the file, but the paper now felt heavier than it had minutes ago. For the first time that day, he truly looked at her face, not her clothes, not her file, but her eyes. Those eyes did not beg for mercy. They held stories of struggle, sacrifice, and nights no rich man could survive. She explained her situation clearly, how she worked 2 jobs, how one mistake came from protecting her family. Her words were not excuses, but truth, and truth has a weight that even power struggles to ignore. Something inside the judge shifted quietly, a feeling he had not faced in years, the discomfort of guilt. The judge tried to keep his face firm, but her words had already reached places pride had guarded for many years. He had seen thousands of cases before, but none had spoken to him with such calm truth and quiet dignity. She described nights without food, days without rest, and choices made only to keep her little brother safe. Each detail she shared painted a life built on sacrifice, not crime, but love carrying more weight than law. The courtroom listened differently now, not with mockery, but with a silence that carried thought and shame. Even those who laughed earlier now avoided her eyes, realizing how quickly they judged what they never lived. The judge remembered his own daughter suddenly, her soft voice, her safe life, her problems small in comparison. A tight feeling formed in his chest, the kind that comes when truth stands too close to comfort and pride. He looked again at the charge file, but now it felt incomplete, like it told facts without telling her story. She was not asking for pity, only fairness, only the chance to be seen as human, not as a poor mistake. Her final sentence came softly, but it held power. She said dignity should not depend on wealth or language. Those words stayed in the air, and for the first time the judge had no quick response ready to hide behind. The judge removed his glasses slowly, a habit he had when thoughts grew heavier than the rules before him. For years he believed law was simple, facts on paper, decisions made without letting emotions enter the room. But today, emotion had walked in calmly, spoken clearly, and placed truth directly in front of his comfort. He glanced at the gallery and saw faces no longer amused, but thoughtful, almost ashamed of earlier smiles. Power still sat under his hands, yet it felt different now, like responsibility instead of a tool of distance. He remembered his early days as a lawyer, when justice meant people, not numbers or routine outcomes. Somewhere along success, that meaning faded, replaced by schedule, status, and quiet habits of cold detachment. Her voice had reopened something old inside him, a part that once cared more than it calculated. He asked her one question gently this time, not to trap her, but to truly understand her situation fully. She answered honestly, explaining how protecting her brother led to a desperate choice on a terrible night. No lies, no drama, just reality, spoken by someone tired of being small in rooms built for the powerful. The judge lowered his eyes briefly, because the line between law and humanity had never felt so thin. The judge sat in silence for a long moment, the kind that forces a person to face what they became over time. The courtroom waited. No whispers now, only the quiet tension of a decision that suddenly meant more than law. He looked at her again, not as a case, not as a mistake, but as someone's daughter, carrying too much alone. His voice, when he finally spoke, was different, slower, softer, like pride had stepped aside for truth. He admitted the court had heard her clearly, and that dignity does not depend on wealth, status, or language. A murmur moved through the room, surprise mixed with relief, as if something heavy had shifted in the air. He spoke of justice needing fairness, but also understanding of the life behind the choices people make. For the first time, his words sounded human, not distant, not protected by cold legal routine. He reduced the charge, acknowledging the circumstances, choosing correction instead of punishment alone. Tears filled her eyes, not from weakness, but from the weight of being seen as human at last. The judge paused once more, then apologized for his earlier behavior, his voice carrying quiet regret. Respect returned to the room slowly, not because of power, but because humility had finally taken its place. She walked out slowly, tears on her face, yet her steps stayed firm, carrying a dignity no insult could ever steal. The courtroom remained quiet behind her, people realizing they had witnessed humanity win over status and pride. Outside, her little brother waited on the steps, unaware his sister had just fought a battle bigger than law. When he ran into her arms, that hug held more victory than any verdict written on official paper. She held him tightly, knowing every sacrifice, every tear, every fear had been for this small, fragile life. Inside the courtroom, the judge sat still, staring at the desk where his pride had quietly fallen apart. He thought about language, power, and how easily respect is lost when empathy leaves the heart. That day changed him deeply because humility entered a place where ego had ruled without challenge. Those who laughed earlier walked away in silence, carrying shame and a lesson they would not forget soon. Her story later spread beyond the court, not about crime, but about dignity, courage, and a fearless reply. She returned home to struggles still waiting, but now hope stood stronger than fear inside her tired heart. Sometimes the quietest person in the room carries the strongest voice when truth finally gets a chance to speak. Days passed, but that courtroom moment stayed alive in many hearts, like a quiet reminder of what respect means. The judge found himself thinking of her words at night, hearing dignity echo louder than his old habits. He began treating each new case differently, asking questions about lives, not just charges and reports. Clerks noticed the change first, his tone softer now, patience replacing the sharp pride he once showed daily. He no longer rushed through files, because every page might hide a story heavier than printed facts. Meanwhile, the young woman returned to work, long hours again, but her spirit no longer carried silent shame. Her brother looked at her with new admiration, seeing not struggle alone, but strength he wanted to grow into. Neighbors who once judged her now greeted her kindly, because stories of truth travel faster than gossip. She never spoke proudly of that day, only said, "Respect matters, even when life stands at its lowest point." The courtroom lesson spread quietly, reminding many that language should never be used to make someone small. One moment of courage had shifted many lives, proving dignity can rise even where power tries to press down. Sometimes change begins not with noise or anger, but with one brave voice choosing truth over fear.